If I had to choose the exact moment my family's reality split, it would be 4:21 p.m. on an unremarkable Thursday. I was standing at the bus stop, mind half lost in daydreams, when my phone buzzed in my pocket, a vibration that would become the starting gun for the strangest night of our lives. It was a message from Mom. "Full family dinner tonight. Please be home. 7 p.m. I blinked, squinting at the text. Our family never did full dinners, at least not anymore. Dad worked late. Mom was usually too tired to cook. My sister, Kate, always had some excuse: practice, study group, friends' houses. And me? I'd stopped even asking what was for dinner. But something about the message's tone, so direct, so plain, set me on edge. I was about to reply when Dad's terse "okay" appeared, followed by Kate's typical "seriously, what for, LOL?" No answer from Mom. It felt urgent. Like a warning. I shoved my phone away, a pit opening in my stomach, and started walking home. Coming home to a stranger's house. Our block looked unchanged, with the same cracked sidewalks and sleepy maple trees, but as I turned onto our street, I felt a prickle on my skin. The sky was overcast, the late afternoon light already fading, and the wind carried a chill that made me zip up my jacket. Our house glowed on the corner, every downstairs light blazing. The porch light flickered weakly in the gathering dusk. I paused at the bottom of the steps. For a second, I was sure I saw a shadow move behind the curtain in the dining room, but when I looked again, nothing. Maybe it was just nerves. Or maybe it was the scent: roast chicken, buttery mashed potatoes, a hint of cinnamon and apple slipping through the door like an invitation and a warning at the same time. Mom opened the door before I could knock. She looked different. Hair swept up, pearls at her neck, skirt and blouse crisp, makeup subtle but unmistakable. I could count on one hand the times she'd dressed up in the last year, and none of them were weeknights. She smiled, too wide, as if she'd rehearsed it. "You're early, sweetheart. Go wash up. Dinner's almost ready." The air inside was thick and warm, saturated with the smells of dinner and something else, something faintly medicinal, like antiseptic. The living room was spotless. The dining table was set for four with Mom's best china, every napkin folded perfectly, candles burning low. I set my backpack down and peered around. Everything was in its place, but it felt as if the whole house was holding its breath. The gathering. Kate burst in 15 minutes later, still in her soccer gear, earbuds dangling around her neck. She froze when she saw the table. "Whoa. Did someone die?" Mom didn't answer. She just waved her in. "Shoes off. Phone away. Please, Kate." Dad arrived last, stepping in with a distracted look, Bluetooth earpiece flashing, muttering about a supplier call. He stopped cold at the doorway, eyebrows climbing, but Mom didn't give him a chance to ask questions. She took his coat and ushered him to the table. We all sat down, awkward and a little confused. For the first time in a long time, all four seats were filled. Mom brought out dish after dish: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy, green beans, homemade bread, and apple pie cooling by the window. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in a dream. Or someone else's house. It was halfway through the meal, as we picked at our food and stumbled through small talk, that Mom laid down the rule. She cleared her throat, looking each of us in the eye. "No one leaves the table tonight. Not until midnight. Not for anything." We all stared at her. Kate scoffed. "Even for the bathroom?" Mom." But Mom's expression didn't budge. "I'm serious. Please promise me. Just this once." Dad frowned. "Helen, what's going on?" She looked at him with a desperate intensity. "Just promise." We all mumbled some version of "okay," not sure whether to laugh or be concerned. Mom's face softened just a little, but she watched us as if she was afraid we'd vanish if she blinked. Conversation faltered. The food was delicious, but it tasted like cardboard in my mouth. I kept noticing things that were off. The window behind Dad was boarded up, wooden planks hammered across from the outside. I don't remember seeing them when I walked up. The nails were bent and jagged, as if someone had done it in a hurry. "Why is the window boarded?" I finally asked. Mom's reply was automatic, "Too quick. Just for tonight. It's safer." Safer from what? I wanted to ask. But the look in her eyes shut me up. Kate noticed it too, whispering, "She's totally lost it?" Dad said nothing. He just stared at the table, jaw clenched, eyes darting to the boarded window and then to Mom. The old grandfather clock ticked louder than usual, each second grinding into my nerves. Tick. 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 Mom's gaze kept flicking from the clock to each of us, as if counting. Dad tried to keep the peace, joking about work and the neighbor's new fence, but no one laughed. Mom answered every question with "Let's just enjoy tonight," or "Let's not talk about that now." Kate tried to get up an hour in, saying she needed the bathroom. Mom's hand shot out, gripping her wrist hard. "Please. Just stay. Please." Kate yanked her hand away, sulking, but didn't leave the table. I glanced at the door to the hallway. It was closed, the knob shiny and clean, as if freshly scrubbed. The air felt heavy, thick enough to chew. My throat was dry. I looked at my plate, barely touched. I wanted to ask, again, what this was all about, but I was afraid of the answer. The wind outside picked up, rattling the boards on the window. The candles flickered, casting long shadows. The house suddenly felt tiny, claustrophobic. Mom started serving dessert. Apple pie, vanilla ice cream melting slowly. None of us ate. At 9:30, the lights flickered once quick, almost unnoticeable, but enough to make my heart leap. Mom's mask slipped for a split second. Fear, raw and naked, flashed in her eyes. She smoothed it over so quickly I almost doubted what I'd seen. Dad pushed his plate away. "Helen, we need to talk about what's really happening here." She shook her head, voice trembling. "Please. Just until midnight. I need this. We need this." Kate rolled her eyes, but said nothing. At 10:15, I noticed the family photo was gone from the mantel. In its place, a single, white candle burned low. I felt the weight of every second, the clock ticking louder. At 10:48, we heard the first tap. 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 Somewhere in the hallway, soft, deliberate, like fingernails on wood. Everyone froze. Mom closed her eyes for a moment, breathing shallowly. "Just a little longer," she whispered. The tapping stopped, but the silence it left behind was deeper, colder. "A family on edge." Kate whispered, "Is it the wind?" No one answered. I wanted to believe it was just the house settling, but I didn't. Dad tried to stand up, maybe to check, maybe just to leave, but Mom begged, "Please. Stay. For me." He sat down, defeated. Mom reached for each of our hands in turn, squeezing tight. Her skin was cold, her fingers trembling. "I love you. All of you. Please, just trust me." The candle seemed to flicker even lower, shadows growing longer. The ritual of fear. 11 o'clock. We sat in silence. No one ate, no one drank. The house felt smaller with every tick of the clock. The second round of tapping came at 11:22, louder now, moving from the hallway to the wall behind the boarded window. Kate whimpered, covering her ears. Dad stared at the table, eyes wet. I watched the clock minute hand crawling, every tick a heartbeat. At 11:47, Mom finally broke. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Just a few more minutes. Please. No matter what happens, don't leave me. We nodded, too numb to speak. The wind died outside. All we could hear was the clock, the tapping, and our own shallow breaths. I squeezed Mom's hand. We're here. She tried to smile, but her lips only trembled. 11:57. The house felt colder than ever. Shadows pressed in, the corners of the room impossibly dark. Tick. 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 At 11:59, the tapping stopped. The air went dead silent. Mom stared at the hallway door, eyes wide, face pale as bone. The clock's second hand crept toward 12. We all held our breath. And just as the clock struck midnight, we realized. No one in our family would ever be the same. When you're waiting for the worst, you think you'll hear it coming, a crash, a scream, the shattering of reality. But midnight arrived in silence. The old clock on the wall let out a single, echoing chime. The sound seemed to ripple through the house, pulling the shadows tighter, snuffing out even the faint comfort of the candlelight. For a moment, it felt like the world was holding its breath. No one spoke. No one moved. Mom's hands were locked in mine, ice cold and shaking. Across the table, Kate was biting her lip to keep from crying, her eyes shining in the darkness. Dad tried to look brave, but the way his knuckles whitened on his napkin told another story. In that hush, the air seemed to thicken, growing so heavy I could barely breathe. Then came the cold, a wave of icy air that pressed in from the hallway, crawling across the floor like a living thing. It pooled beneath the table, wrapping itself around our ankles, making our skin prickle and our muscles tense. The hairs on my arms rose. My breath came out in little clouds. Something was wrong. Not just strange, but wrong in a way I'd never felt before. Then, from deep in the house down the dark hallway, past the locked doors came a sound. A slow, rhythmic tapping. Tap. 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 It echoed through the silence, unhurried and patient, as if whatever made it had all the time in the world. Each tap felt closer than the last, as though the walls themselves were carrying it straight to us. Mom squeezed my hand tighter. I could feel her pulse racing, matching my own. Dad cleared his throat, trying to sound steady. Helen, what is it? Mom didn't answer. Her gaze was fixed on the hallway, wide and desperate. The tapping stopped. The quiet was suffocating. And then, with impossible clarity, we heard it. A breath. Not the wheezing of a person, but a long, deep inhalation like an animal scenting prey, or a furnace drawing in air before a blaze. Kate whimpered. I reached for her, but Mom wouldn't let go of my hand. A voice floated from the darkness. It sounded almost human, but not quite, echoing and hollow, as if it came from somewhere very far away or very close behind the walls. One is missing. The words crawled into my mind like icy fingers. I looked around the table, 4 seats filled. We were all here. What could it mean? The truth comes out. Mom stood, her chair scraping against the floor. She looked at each of us, her eyes shining with tears. I made a promise, she whispered. Last year. During the blackout. I never told you because I hoped it was just a dream. But it wasn't. Something was in the house with me. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it, hear it, breathing right behind me. She swallowed, her voice breaking. It told me, next year, same time. Everyone stays seated. Or someone will be taken. I thought if I got you all to stay, we'd be safe. But I was wrong. The voice came again, this time louder, nearer. One is missing. Dad tried to stand, but Mom stopped him with a look of pure terror. I'm sorry, she whispered. It wants me. Not you. Before any of us could react, She let go of my hand and walked, slow and steady, toward the darkness of the hallway. Her footsteps echoed, impossibly loud, each one carrying her further away. She paused in the doorway, looking back at us with a sad, gentle smile. "I love you. Don't follow me." Then she was gone. The temperature in the room rose instantly. The pressure lifted, as if some great weight had been removed. We sat frozen, unable to speak, barely able to breathe. The clock chimed midnight again. Somewhere in the distance, we heard a final exhale like a sigh of satisfaction from something ancient and hungry. For several long minutes, none of us moved. We waited, expecting some new horror, but the house was still. No more tapping. No more voice. The candles flared up, burning bright for a moment, then settling into their normal glow. But Mom didn't come back. We sat at the table until dawn, too afraid to move, too numb to cry. The first light of morning crept through the cracks in the boarded window. It painted everything gray and empty. Kate was the first to speak, her voice small and broken. "Is she gone?" Dad tried to answer, but his voice cracked. I looked at Mom's empty chair, the napkin she'd folded so carefully, her untouched dessert. I wanted to scream, to run, to break something, but all I could do was sit there, hands clenched tight in my lap, staring at the space where she'd been. Eventually, Dad stood and gently guided us to our rooms. None of us slept. The days and years that followed. We never saw Mom again. The police came, took our statements, searched the house. They found nothing, no footprints, no sign of a break-in, no evidence that anyone had left through the doors or windows. They called it a disappearance. The neighbors whispered, but no one asked questions. Dad tried to go back to work. Kate stopped going to soccer practice. I walked through the house like a ghost, flinching at every creak, every draft, every unexpected shadow. Every year since, on that same Thursday night, we set the table for 4. Dad cooks something simple. Kate brings flowers. I light the candles. And we all wait. Just in case. No one ever leaves the table before midnight. Sometimes, on especially cold nights, I hear a faint tapping in the hallway. And every time, my heart pounds with fear and a strange hope that Mom might walk back through that door. But she never does. Reflection, what remains unspoken? There are so many things we never say out loud. We never talk about the way the air in the dining room turns icy every November, or how the lights flicker at the same moment the clock strikes 12. We never speak of the voice, the tapping, or the feeling that the house is still watching us, waiting to see if we'll break the rule. I wonder what Mom saw in the darkness that night. I wonder if she's still somewhere, trapped in a place where time stands still, kept by the promise she made to protect us. Sometimes I think I see her in the shadows, just out of sight. Sometimes I dream of the hallway, and the breathing, and the voice whispering, "One is missing." Mostly, I think about the strength it took for Mom to walk into the unknown alone. I hope she knows we stayed together, like she wanted. Final words, a legacy of love and terror. People say family is about love, about memories, and laughter and shared stories. For us, it's also about the secrets we keep, the promises we make, and the things we're willing to face for each other even if we're terrified. I still set the table for 4. I still listen for tapping in the hallway. And every year, as midnight approaches, I whisper a silent thank you to Mom for loving us enough to face the darkness alone. Whatever else happened that night, I know this. Some terrors can only be kept at bay by love, by courage, and by the hope that maybe, just maybe, the worst is over. But every time the clock strikes midnight, I remember. It only takes one missing for the darkness to return. There's a certain comfort in routine, a sense that, so long as you stick to the script of your daily life, nothing truly awful can happen. Looking back, I think that's why we never saw it coming. We were too comfortable in the story we'd written for ourselves: ordinary family, ordinary house, ordinary Thursday dinner. That night, the sky was the color of steel wool, threatening rain. My wife had set the table with leftovers, meatloaf from the night before, some green beans, mashed potatoes microwaved for the second time. The kids grumbled, but ate anyway. We joked about the weather, about Mr. Palmer's ridiculous Halloween decorations still up in January, about how the dog kept tracking mud in from the yard. No one was looking for trouble. Certainly not me. If I could pinpoint the first crack in our reality, it was the sound of the doorbell. It rang once clear and sharp, cutting straight through the dull clatter of forks and the low hum of family chatter. Everyone stopped eating. My wife looked at me, eyebrows raised. "Are we expecting anyone?" she asked. I shook my head. "Nope. We never got unexpected visitors, not here in our quiet upstate neighborhood. The only people who ever rang our bell were package carriers and the occasional lost pizza driver." I wiped my hands on my napkin and pulled out my phone, tapping open the smart doorbell app. We'd only had it for a month, and I liked the novelty of checking who was at the door without leaving my seat. It took a few seconds for the feed to load, the spinning icon stuttering as it connected to our Wi-Fi. When the image finally flickered onto the screen, I went cold. There, standing on our front porch, was a man. But not just any man. He looked exactly like me. Not similar. Not could be cousins. Not even same build, same hair. It was me. Same winter jacket, same dark jeans, same scuffed sneakers. Same haircut, same awkward posture. Even the tired, worried look in his eyes was my own, staring back at me through the distorted fisheye lens of the doorbell cam. I stared, heart pounding. The screen felt impossibly small, my thumb trembling above the home button. My wife leaned over, peering at the phone. She froze. "Is that?" she whispered, voice trailing off. I couldn't answer. I wanted to say no, to laugh and hand her the phone, to tell her it was some bizarre prank or a trick of the light. But the longer I looked, the less I believed any of those things. I was sitting at the dinner table, warm and safe, my family around me. And yet, I was also outside in the cold, standing silent and still on our porch, staring into the camera. The children grew restless, sensing something was wrong. "Who is it, Dad?" my son asked. I started, then trailed off, unable to finish. The man on the screen didn't move. He didn't ring the bell again, didn't peer in through the window, didn't fidget with his hands or clear his throat. He simply stood there, looking up at the camera, as if he knew we were watching. "Maybe it's just someone who looks like you," my wife offered, but her voice lacked conviction. I nodded, desperate to believe it. "I'll go see," I said, rising from the table. As I moved, I kept my eyes glued to the phone. The feed remained unchanged. The double didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't do anything except stand in place, waiting. I approached the front door quietly, pausing just out of view of the side windows. My hand hovered over the deadbolt, uncertain. I didn't open it. I don't know why some deep, animal instinct kept me from turning the knob. Instead, I peered through the peephole. He was still there. But something was wrong. Up close, the resemblance was even more perfect. Same lines on the face, same faint scar on the left eyebrow, even the same chipped front tooth I'd gotten in college. He wasn't blinking. His chest didn't rise and fall. He just stood there, eyes locked on the peephole, as if he could see me watching. I stepped back, heart hammering, and returned to the kitchen. "It's nobody," I lied, hoping my voice sounded steadier than I felt. But my wife's eyes were sharp. She'd seen enough to know I was scared. Before I could say anything more, We all heard it, 3 slow, deliberate knocks. But not from the front door. From the back. Our kitchen door led out to a small fenced yard. The only way in was through a heavy gate that always squeaked when opened. The room fell silent. My daughter squeezed my wife's arm. My son looked up at me, mouth open. I checked my phone, switching to the back security cam. Nothing. Just a grainy view of the dark yard, the porch light flickering. But the knocks came again, 3, then a pause, then 3 more. This time, I got up and walked to the back, grabbing the baseball bat I kept by the basement stairs. I crept to the kitchen door, avoiding the boards that creaked. I flicked on the outside light, squinting through the foggy window. He was there. My double. Same clothes, same face, same eerie stillness. His hands hung at his sides, palms turned slightly outward. He didn't seem to feel the cold. The porch light cast a long shadow behind him, distorted and wrong, stretching out toward the fence. How did he get from the front to the back so quickly? I'd never heard the gate. There was no way to cross the yard without the motion light kicking on. He stared at the window. For a split second, I thought he smiled, but his face remained blank. I backed away, forcing myself to stay calm. When I returned, my wife was already herding the children to the dining table. "What's going on?" she whispered, eyes wide. "He's at the back door now," I said, keeping my voice low. The kids started to cry. My son clung to my arm, my daughter buried her face in my wife's side. I tried to reassure them, but my words felt empty. We all huddled in the kitchen, lights off, listening. No one dared move. Then the lights flickered, a quick stutter, as if the power were about to go out. The smart doorbell chimed again. I grabbed my phone. The front porch was empty. Then, as I was about to put my phone down, a notification appeared. Motion detected, upstairs hallway. We didn't have a camera upstairs. I'd never installed one. But the app showed a live feed our upstairs hallway, outside the bedrooms. My hands trembled as I opened the video. There, standing in the middle of the hall, was my double. He faced my bedroom door, motionless, head tilted slightly as if listening. I stared, unblinking, as the video continued. He didn't move. He didn't blink. He simply waited. My wife saw the screen and gasped, pulling the kids closer. For a long minute, we just stood there, rooted in place by a terror we didn't understand. Upstairs. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let whatever it was stay upstairs with my family below. I grabbed the baseball bat with both hands and crept up the stairs, one slow step at a time. Each footfall echoed in the darkness. At the top, the hallway was empty. The doors were all closed, except for mine open a crack. I inched forward, heart pounding, and nudged the door with the bat. No one. The closet door was ajar. From inside, I heard breathing. Before I could move, the hallway light switched off, plunging everything into darkness. That's when I heard my own voice, whispering behind me, cold and flat. "You shouldn't be here yet." I spun around, swinging the bat wildly. Nothing. No one. I raced down the stairs, 2 at a time. My wife was already at the door, clutching the kids. "We're leaving," I gasped, grabbing coats, shoes, whatever I could. We didn't stop to pack. We didn't even lock the door behind us. We piled into the car and drove away, headlights carving the night. In the rearview mirror, I thought I saw a shape in the upstairs window. Watching. We spent that night at a cheap motel, the kids huddled between us on the bed. None of us slept. The next day, we called a locksmith, a security company, the police. They found nothing. No signs of a break-in, no strange fingerprints, nothing out of place except for a lingering, sour cold in the house. For weeks, the smart cameras sent motion alerts. At first, they were just glitches. A light turning on, a door closing by itself. But then the upstairs hallway feed would reappear just for a moment, always showing my double, a little closer to the camera each time, his face growing clearer, his eyes impossibly empty. I deleted the app. I turned off the power. But sometimes, late at night, my phone would buzz with a new alert. The feed would show him, just outside our motel door. Or so it seemed. Eventually, we moved. Changed our numbers, our names. We never spoke of it again. But every now and then, in the corner of my eye, I think I see him. Standing just where I shouldn't be. They say you can't run from your own reflection. That morning, as sunlight bled through the cheap motel curtains, I stared into the bathroom mirror and tried to prove them wrong. My face unshaven, eyes ringed with sleeplessness looked back at me. But now, every flicker of movement behind me, every shadow in the corner, made my heart jump. I kept expecting to see another version of myself lurking in the background, silent and waiting. We checked out before breakfast. The kids were quiet, drained. My wife's hand trembled as she packed up what little we'd brought. Back at the house, I walked every room with the police. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints, no footprints, nothing, the officer said, clipboard in hand. Looks like a bad prank. But he hadn't seen the camera feed. He hadn't heard the voice that matched mine exactly, icy and emotionless. We packed what we could that day and drove 2 towns over to stay with my brother-in-law, Mark. I told him only what he needed to hear, a break-in, maybe a stalker. The kids were scared. The real story stuck in my throat, impossible to explain. Life didn't snap back to normal. Not even close. The kids started sleeping in our room. My wife kept the shades drawn tight. I found myself checking every mirror, every window, scanning for that other me. Every night, I'd unplug the security system, but still my phone would buzz at odd hours. Motion detected, upstairs hallway. I'd open the app with shaking hands, telling myself it was a software glitch, a leftover setting from the old house. But sometimes just for a second the screen would flicker, and there he'd be. My double. Closer than before, his face pressed almost to the camera, features distorted, mouth curled into a not quite smile. The nightmares started soon after. Sometimes, I'd dream I was standing outside in the cold, watching my family through the window, unable to speak, unable to move, forced to watch myself live my own life. Other times, I'd see myself walking down the hall, opening my bedroom door, climbing into bed next to my wife while the real me stood frozen in terror, unable to scream. The worst dream was the one where I tried to run. No matter how far I got, every house looked the same. Every street was lined with mirrors. In each reflection, a different version of me watched, each one expressionless, each one waiting for their turn. I started waking in the middle of the night, bathed in sweat, checking my phone for alerts I was afraid to see. My wife tried to be strong, but I caught her crying in the bathroom, hand pressed to her mouth to muffle the sound. We stopped letting the kids walk home alone. We moved again, this time to a rented townhouse with no cameras, no smart devices. Still, the sense of being watched followed us everywhere. I grew obsessed. I scoured the internet for stories other people who'd seen themselves where they shouldn't be. Doppelgangers. Harbingers. Shadow selves. Most of what I found was folklore, bad luck, omens, warnings of death. But a few stories were chillingly close to ours. A man in Michigan who swore his double called his wife from an unknown number. A woman in Toronto who said she saw herself step off a train she'd never boarded. A family in Arizona who moved 3 times, but always found the same stranger standing in their backyard, waving. Each story ended the same way. No proof. No solution. Just fear, and the sense that something had been stolen. The tension at home thickened. My wife and I fought more often about nothing and everything. She wanted to go to her mother's, to bring in a priest, to buy a dog. The kids grew quiet. My daughter drew pictures of two dads, one smiling, one all black and scribbled out. My son stopped sleeping through the night. One morning, I found him in the hallway, staring into the bathroom mirror, tears in his eyes. "What's wrong, buddy?" I asked. He shook his head, wouldn't answer. When I crouched down to hug him, he flinched. "Is it the man from before?" I whispered. He nodded, so small and scared. I thought if we kept moving, kept our heads down, he'd stop following us. But the alerts returned. At first, just static. Then brief flashes: my face, my clothes, but wrong. Then the calls started. Blocked numbers, always late at night. When I answered, there was only breathing, long, slow, deliberate. One night, the line stayed open, and I heard a whisper. "You shouldn't be here yet." I threw the phone against the wall. That was the night I realized I'd never be free until I faced him. I waited until everyone was asleep. I stood in the bathroom, facing the mirror, bathed in harsh, yellow light. My reflection looked back, tired, older, afraid. I reached out, fingertips brushing cool glass. "I'm not running anymore," I whispered. "What do you want?" For a moment, the reflection seemed to change. The mouth didn't move, but the eyes grew colder, deeper, as if I was looking down a long tunnel. From somewhere behind me a whisper, my own voice, perfectly flat. "You know." I turned. No one was there. But the air grew colder, the shadows deeper. The next day, I made a choice. I called my wife, told her to take the kids to her mother's for the weekend. She argued, but I insisted. Once the house was empty, I turned on every light, opened every door. I waited. For hours, nothing happened. Then just after midnight the lights flickered, the temperature dropped. From the upstairs hallway, I heard footsteps. I gripped the baseball bat and climbed the stairs, each creak louder than the last. At the top, my bedroom door was open. Inside, sitting on the edge of my bed, was my double. He looked up, smiling my smile, but empty. We stared at each other. "Why?" I whispered. He tilted his head. "You let me in." His voice was mine, but colder. "You watched me. Listened. Now you have to choose." He stood, mirroring my movements. I raised the bat. He didn't flinch. "Choose what?" I asked, my voice trembling. He stepped closer, and I saw that his eyes were pitch black, endless. "One of us stays," he said. "One of us leaves." My grip loosened. The bat dropped to the floor. I understood. All the running, the hiding, it had only brought him closer. I closed my eyes. "Take me, then," I whispered. "Let my family go." The breaking point. There was a silence so deep it hurt. When I opened my eyes, the double was gone. The room felt lighter. Warmer. I staggered downstairs, heart racing. I found my phone on the table, an alert from the smart camera. I opened it with shaking hands. The feed showed my family, safe and sleeping at my mother-in-law's house. And me standing outside, watching through the window. But I was inside, wasn't I? Or was I? Days passed. My family returned. The house felt normal again, almost. But sometimes, when I walk past a mirror, I see something just out of sync. A blink too slow. A smile that's not quite mine. Every so often, my phone buzzes with a motion alert, even though I haven't used the app in weeks. I open it, Heart in my throat. Sometimes, it's just static. Sometimes, it's me standing outside in the cold, waiting to be let in. I don't know which of us won that night. But I know this. Some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed. And some reflections will wait forever for a chance to cross over.